All right, this whole thing has been a total fiasco. I'm just going to go ahead and officially sign out before things get even worse. Things are not operating the way they should be, and so I just got disconnected without even realizing it. So all I can say is thank you for those of you who stood with me today. Hopefully next week it'll be better. Okay, that's all I can say. And I hope to have some more interesting topics to discuss. I'm going to have some canvas results with the new Breathing Color Live matte canvas. We're going to be doing that this coming week, by the way. So again, I hope to be able to show you guys that. So thank you once again. Again, I apologize for all the mistakes and the problems. Not my mistakes. This is something that the software is doing, and I really seriously need to look into this. All right, there's no one on here right now. So again, for those of you who watch me later on the replay, thank you for hanging out. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye. I see we got 2 people here. Let's see if anyone else is coming back. I really don't know what happened, what caused this. I apologize for the 3 of you that are here right now. If you could very quickly let me know in the chat who you are and whether you would like me to stay or not. And we can proceed. I don't mind. I just need to apologize for the really, really problem-filled stream of this week. But it happens. That's what happens when you go live. So we have 2 people here. We got Wheels 9696. I don't think I know you. Hey, yeah, I am live. I've been live, but it's been just full of problems. I don't know what the heck is going on here with the OBS streaming software. Anyway, if I do sign off, which I almost did, the live stream is actually broken into 2 individual live streams. Now it's going to be 3. So go ahead and check that out. Okay, you'll be able to see what we were discussing. And I'll probably delete this one because this will kind of be useless at this point. Oh, you got here after the problem, so it's new to you. Yeah. We had a very good discussion. What is your printer? What do you like to do with photo printing? Since you're the only one here. Well, there's one more person here. Let me know. Share with us what you do with your printers or printer. I have 13 of them, so I have a lot of printers to take care of and maintain. So let us know what you are using at the moment for your print reproduction, if you will. So got 3 people here. Let's see how many more we get. Okay, let's see. Go ahead and tell us what you're using, Wheels. And the other 2 people, go ahead and let us know you are here present. Tell us who you are, where you're watching from, and so forth. Tell us what type of printing you are interested in doing, and printers or models, or whether you want to use OEM or original inks or third party. Just so you know, you are coming through fine, but your chat is still showing on the other feed without 30 people. With about 30 people, well, I can't even get the other feed. That's the problem. So I never went off the air. Is that what you're saying? This is ridiculous. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to go back to the other ones. So we just let things alone and we'll continue flowing. If everybody on the other chat can just join this chat, maybe we can continue running. Again, what a mess. Boy. Yeah, you have to check out and come back in. Yeah, that's true. Wheels says he's got a P600 OEM inks printing watercolor illustrations on cold press stock. Awesome. Great. And that printer is wonderful for that. Wonderful, because it's a really good matte media printer. Just make sure you just don't constantly just print using matte black ink. Occasionally, you have to switch. Otherwise, that switch valve is just going to go bad on you. Yeah, the other says, I don't even know how to get to the other. That's the problem. We'll just stay here. I don't want to do anything that's going to screw things up even more. I wonder whether this will be stitched together by YouTube. I hope so. I hope they do that. Sometimes they're actually smarter than we give them credit. And but I checked earlier, and it was actually two separate streams. The one that I was a little bit out of sync on. Yeah, I had to restart that now. I think we'll just go ahead and spend some time answering questions. So if you guys got any questions, please take the opportunity right now to just ask away. And then we'll see what we can, if we can recover from this disaster, basically. Where I'm at right now with the Pro-1000, I'm still on all of the cartridges have been refilled, okay? About 8 of them have the so-called ARC chips, the auto reset chips. The other 4 developed some kind of error after they were low. And so I could not disable them and just continue refilling them. So I had a second set of auto reset chips that Precisioncolors sent me, because they figure it was a later batch and they thought maybe those would work. So I swapped the unreadable 4 chips for those 4 cartridges that were showing errors that could not be fixed anyway, anything I tried. So I removed the chips and I replaced them with matching chips from the second set of ARC chips, auto reset chips, from a new batch from China. And so they were seen as genuine cartridges. And so that's where I'm at now. The other 8 are at different levels. They're going to reach low at some point, and we'll see how they react, how they, behave, if you will. Same thing with the P800. I think you saw my levels earlier when I was showing you how to set up the driver. And the way that'll work is that when one of those cartridges reaches empty by the chip, it will then not be recognized anymore. You'll get a kind of a scary non-recognition error. And at that point, what you do is you switch over by pressing the button on your decoder board, and all of them get reset to full. So the one that was empty and not recognized would be reset to full, as well as the other 8, whatever levels they were at. That's great, but I would love it if it was 1 cartridge at a time. Yeah, because then you could really, imagine a cartridge that was only down 20%. It still had 80% of the ink. I just threw away the rest of that ink monitoring, part of the chip. It's gone. It's just reset back to full. So I had to unnecessarily reset the other 8 cartridges to full. But that's how it works, and that's what we have to accept. So either that or use the firmware. And since I have that expensive decoder board, I'm just going to go ahead and stick to that for the time being, because I have a long way to go. Again, even after printing a big old panorama like that, my ink levels are still pretty high. So it's going to be quite a while until one of them reaches low, or empty, in other words. All right, let's go ahead and look at some of this stuff. Maybe we'll make something out of this stream tonight. I don't know. Last week's was good. I don't know what's going on this week. Okay. Huggy Bear says, the other said you had 26 watching. Okay. Well, they should jump over here. If they can hear me, jump over to the new stream. Okay. Curtis, or the new chat, if you can figure it out. I just cannot. Curtis Bazar Jr., ET2720. Is that a Eco? What kind of printer is that, ET? Extraterrestrial? No, I'm just kidding. Cal Johnson says, can I make my 3800 like you've done with all gloss optimizers? I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose so. Why? What are you going to do with it? Same thing I was doing. You can. Then you would need quad tone rip, and you would need a specific curve custom made for the 3800 so that all channels print just one layer of gloss optimizer. That would be the only way. Otherwise, there's no way the printer knows. What are you going to do? Send it a blank image? Yeah, that's what you normally do. Send it a blank image. And the printer will then look at it and say, the driver or the RIP software will look at it and say, okay, I'm just going to lay down a given amount of chroma or gloss optimizer per channel, all 8 channels that are active, because remember, you have two black channels that are going to be sharing. Wheels 9696 says, having issues with that the cold press stock isn't feeding great through the top loader. The feeding mechanism isn't grabbing the stock very well. Yeah, isn't that a paper that needs to be fed through the front? I believe so. I believe so. That amount of curve from the top feeder may be too much. Is that a heavy paper? Is that a thick paper? That may be the case. Dan Carter, I came from the other stream. Good. Please don't leave. Wheels 9696, I can clean the feeder with a bit of alcohol and it will grab okay for a few prints, but then it will constantly misfeed and won't grab. You mean the rollers? Be careful with using alcohol. It will just dry the rubber to the point where it'll be even totally useless. Okay. How old is your printer? It shouldn't be doing this. Again, and I think the recommended way to feed that type of paper would be through the front feeder. Okay. In other words, the flat feeder. Dan Carter says, came from the other stream. Good, thank you. Do you replace all cards when one goes empty on the ARC chips? No, because only one cartridge is going to be reset. So there's no point. There's no point. If you could, this on the Pro 100, you can, and the Pro 10 also, you can reset all the chips at once. Okay, and if you're really, really super quick, you can refill them all up, and then you start from fresh again with a complete set all the way up, all of them full, situation. And it's going to be quite a while until one goes empty. That's what I do with my Pro 10. I have cartridges already set waiting. When one goes low or empty, on the Pro 10 you can go till empty. On the Pro 100 you should go only when you're low because of the sponge. Pro 100 has a sponge. Okay, the Pro 10 does not. It uses an ink bag. And so you can go empty with the Pro 10. So one goes empty, replace the whole batch with a full set, already pre-filled, already reset to full. That's it. One purge cycle, purge exchange. Whereas if you do one at a time, like you have to with ARC chips, then every time you change one cartridge, all the cartridges are going to be purged. In other words, a little bit of ink is going to be used to keep that print head clean and primed and you name it. Yeah, so it's a very wasteful way to do your cartridge management if you are refilling. If you're using OEM original inks, then you have to live with that. But not when you're refilling. When you choose to refill and you have an extra set of cartridges, which is the way to go, then you can do that complete exchange because you're able to reset all of them. With the auto reset chips, you can only reset that one that's empty. The other ones are still at different levels. They cannot be reset until they reach empty individually. It's a domino effect. There's always one about to go empty or low. You see? Curtis Bazar says, EPSON, okay. Tim C says, Canon says to not touch the ink cartridges once installed in the Pro-1000. I usually shake the cartridges in my EPSON 3880 once a week. Do the Canon inks not suffer from settling or pigment? What do you mean, do not touch the cartridges? So you're not allowed to take them out and agitate them. Okay, no problem. The Pro-1000 self-agitates itself. There's no need to do that. You will hear that every once in a while. It's this rhythmic, piston-like sound. That's the ink being agitated internally. So, I told you that Canon Pro-1000 was smart. Yeah. It does so many things. The more I find out, like I said earlier, the more I fall in love with it even more. Yeah. It's a fantastic printer. You just have to know. It's a very cantankerous, it's a high maintenance girl. No offense meant. There's also guys that are high maintenance. Yeah, my sister's ex-husband was that way. So yeah, it just does a lot of things that it needs to do to maintain itself at the peak of operation. So I appreciate it, actually. Wheel says that 8x10 cold press, 350 grams. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. It won't grab through the front loader? What do you mean? You push it in and line it up and it will not feed? That seems odd. Best way to clean the rollers, then on the P600, try one of the sticky sheets Epson used to sell, but it jammed and ripped. Terrified to try that again. Yeah, well, other than what you've been doing, there is a trick that you can do, and I don't have a sheet of regular paper here. It's one of those do-it-yourself type tricks. Here we go. I have an old nozzle check here. Take a piece of paper like so, or a piece of regular bond paper or copy paper, letter size or the size of your printer capacity, whatever. This is good enough. And you make a solution of isopropyl alcohol and water, and you wet the bottom. Okay? Then you feed it, press the paper feed button, and the paper should feed through the printer. This will pick up any kind of lint and crap that builds up on the rollers, and this dry part will, supposedly remove the moisture from the rollers. You do this a couple of times and that should work. I did manage to get my really, really old R2400 to feed more consistently. It didn't fix it completely, but it allowed it to feed more consistently than it had been. So, but again, like I said, there are some roller cleaning compounds that are made for rubber. Alcohol is convenient, it works, but it tends to then dry your rubber rollers even more. Okay, there's a reason your sister's ex-husband is her ex-husband. Yes, absolutely. I don't need to even tell you the story. Right now, she is happily married to a wonderful guy and doing quite well. Doing quite well, and she deserves every bit of that awesome life she's living now. Okay. So anyway, I think, it's 6:12 my time. Anything else we need to discuss? I really practically ran out of the subjects that we're going to be covering. I want to leave a few surprises for next week. I don't want to disclose everything, but it all has to do with following some simple rules. Every day I read questions from people that are still having the same problems, and it's been discussed already many, many times. So I think for some reason, whatever the reason, we all land on this hobby or craft, and then we all commit the same little errors here and there, and it just happens. So, but it's like once you learn to play the piano scales correctly, then you know. Before you were doing them incorrectly, rendered, and your professor told you, no, you're supposed to play them this way. And then you learn how to play them that way. That's it. You never go back to, you see what I mean? Once you learn the process, and it's something like riding a bike, it'll just come natural. It happened to me. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand what PPI or DPI or profiles or, disabling color management or enabling color management. I had no idea how that was all interconnected. And every print that I made, I could take the same image and print it 10 times and get 10 different results. That's how inconsistent I was. And then finally, it just kind of hit me. It did, and it just registered finally. And so after that, life's been good as far as this goes. I don't have to worry. Like I said, I don't even bother coming back to the monitor. I just look, I know what the image is supposed to look like. So when I see it come out, then I take into account the slight dulling effect that paper will have. And depending on the paper, you will have different results. It's not all the same. Papers have different color, paper-based color, if you will. This is pretty cold. This is pretty neutral. Some of them are actually bluish almost. They look like, if you make a comparison with another type of glossy paper or luster paper, you might detect a difference in warmth. This might be a little bit warmer than another one. The other one might look, wow, when I see it, side by side, there's quite a difference. This is cold. So what would you use that for? If you have, shots of glaciers, if you're ever going to cruise to Alaska and you have the opportunity to shoot photographs under that kind of environment, then you would use something cold, something a little bit warmer that you want to accentuate, your colors and contrast. You would choose something like a good luster paper. That tends to, increase that pop effect. That fish, I want that fish to be a little bit warm, not cold, you see. Glaciers that have a bluish shadow colors, yeah, that goes with that cool paper, with the cool paper base. Now, somebody asks, well, how does that affect profiles? Well, that has indeed affected the profile. When you make a profile for a paper that has a certain base color, and you're printing those patches over that paper that you're then going to read, that base color already affected the way that patch will be reproduced on paper. And so when you scan it, it's going to take into account that particular paper base color. Some papers, I have Red River Aurora white and natural. Natural is almost yellowish tan paper base. I mean, it does have a warmth to it, and you would use that for something that would be, more, complementary to that image. So something like a warm sunset, a bunch of babies laying down on a warm pink blanket. Of course, you want to use a warm paper-based paper. Dolphins in the blue ocean, that's not going to work for that type of paper. You want to use the white. And this cheap Canon paper right here, the luster, this has optical brightening agents, and it reacts differently to whatever light temperature hits it. Okay? if the illumination has a lot of UV, it causes the OBAs to fluoresce, and that gives you that false impression of a more brighter paper base. Okay, that's what it's there for, to increase the look, the brightness of your your finished image on that paper. It's not going to look as dull as it normally would look like without those optical brightening agents. Now, your fine art papers do not have that. So people may say, oh, when I print on those, they look a little bit kind of duller. It's like I have to increase the contrast a little bit. Well, yeah, that's the way it would look on that other paper if it didn't have optical brightening agents or OBAs. And the paper manufacturer's chart gives you all the specs on that paper that you buy, will tell you whether there's OBAs or not. Some of them have a very low percentage. Some of them have an extremely high percentage. Yeah, literally. And so what happens? If you look at something on window light from a north-facing window, there's no sunlight landing on it. It will look different than looking at it on a southern window, for instance, next to southern window light, because that may have actual sunlight on it. And so OBAs will give you a different look depending on the temperature of the light you're using to view it under. So it's pretty tricky. The only papers that will not do that are papers without OBA. So be aware of that when you choose to buy papers, okay? Now, the layperson will choose probably this paper because it just looks so much brighter, so much pop. It's like when you go to the Best Buy store and all those TV screens, you're going to gravitate toward the one that's more contrasty, brighter, and more colorful. Oh, this is gorgeous. Well, that's actually wrong. That's unnatural, you see. So learn how to examine your images and how they're supposed to actually look, okay, rather than the enhancement that you get for printing and something like this. Don't go Google eyes over a print that is just incredibly saturated and bright. I have some of those, but I know that's unnatural. That's not what the original scene looked like. Okay, I know that. Sunsets are notorious for that as well. So just kind of learn how to examine, how to analyze. That's the word. Analyze what a true natural result should be. And once you can achieve that, then you can go ahead and kind of artistic license, that's what they call it, and play around. Okay, so Tim C says, Wheels 9696, Epson has a full page on hints on loading the P series. Perhaps one will help you. Yeah, but if the rollers are going bad, there's not much that one can do, believe me. You may want to experiment if you can get into the driver and find your thickness adjustments and go ahead and increase it, and that may help you. I don't know whether the P600 does it have a rear, like a manual rear feeder that would be used, for example, for the roll adapter. There's no real roll adapter. It's just two little things you install. But look at that. See if you can feed it from not the top, but the back feeder. Okay. You basically have to insert it. It'll trigger a sensor, and it will be automatically advanced and prepped for you. You'll have to choose that on your driver as the feed location as well. That may help. Who knows? Because what may be actually going bad on you are those initial rollers that grab the paper. If you feed it from the back and you let the common rollers do the job, because it begins to pull it immediately without printing, and it sets the edge at the correct position so that then you can print on it. By that point, it's already installed, it's already in, and you're not relying on that initial grab of the paper, which could be what you're experiencing problems with. T-Alp PT says, by the way, in case you were wondering, you have 15 in each stream, so 30 people total. Okay. Ah, boy. Okay, that's crazy. We'll see what this comes out at the end. I have no idea what is going to actually be saved as by YouTube. Mesa4 says, hi, Jose, I have a Pro-1000. I remember you saying that when you replace the ink cart, it wastes I didn't say 1 ml, it wastes some ink. Is that true? Yes, it does. It does create a purge cycle. Purging means to remove something. Okay, so what it does when you install, here's what happens. Let me give you a scenario. You open up the lid, you press the ink change button, you allow the print head to come to the center position, you remove one cartridge, and you immediately put it back in. That's all it takes. When the head returns, it's going to run, let's call it a mini cleaning cycle, and all 10 cartridges will be used, basically. A small amount of ink will be removed from each cartridge. That's it. That's why if you're just changing single cartridges one after the other, see what happens is the inks are never used at the same rate. They're going to be all like this. And so you get one that's empty, you change it, you pop a refilled one or a brand new one in, and another cartridge that may have been low becomes empty because of that purge cycle that takes place, and you got to replace that one. And another one that was 2 steps above empty now is empty. You see what I mean? So by replacing the whole set with one that has already been refilled full and reset to full, boom, you start fresh, 100%. All the positions have 100% ink, not all kinds of different levels. That's the whole point. Okay, if I look at my Pro-10 right now, they're all pretty, getting low, but they're all pretty much equal. Okay, because it takes a couple of cycles for that difference in levels to start to build up, and then you're just constantly changing cartridges. If you print a lot, you're going to be constantly changing cartridges. Every time you turn around, you got to change a cartridge. All right. Dan Carter says, just received my sample packs from Red River Papers yesterday. Highly recommend everyone spend a few bucks and compare their papers. Yeah, if you are wondering, oh, what paper should I use? What do you recommend I use? Well, I cannot recommend anything, because what I like, you may not like, and what you like, I may not like. Should I tell you what kind of card to buy, what kind of camera to buy, what kind of printer to buy? No, you have to do your research and find out what fits your needs. So get those sample packs and then just get a few images, whatever. You know, I don't care what it is. How about this? You get yourself a few images and you start to print them on different papers and just examine them. Some images work best on certain papers. I mean, they just get along like they're in love. And then some of them look terrible. Totally wrong type of image for this particular type of paper with these particular qualities. This is more for this other type of image. So that's what is beautiful about these sample packs. You get, I think you only get like 2 each. They're labeled, so you know what each is. There's no mistake. You download their profiles. And if you're using OEM inks, you can go ahead and use those. Oh, there goes my panorama. The heater was blowing on it. And by the way, for those of you who are new here tonight, in this particular part of the stream, here's the panorama that I did by shooting 5 raw images from my drone of the neighborhood. And then I went ahead and stitched it in Lightroom and printed it on my P800 because it has roll support. So it did a terrific job. I'm very thrilled with it. Let me put it over here. And I will continue to do so. I need to just find better, more, picturesque areas to shoot. And I'll be able to produce lots of gorgeous panoramas that are just so simple to produce. It's just ridiculous how painless it is. Alrighty. How much ink do you save by refilling and filling all carts and replacing them all at once and not replacing each one? Well, let me put it this way. On a 10 cartridge printer, 10 times the amount of ink. How much ink is that? I have no clue. I really don't know what it uses per each purge cycle, but it's the same amount every time you change one cartridge. So say in 2 months you change 10 cartridges. That's 10 purge cycles. In 2 months you change one complete set. That's one purge cycle. That's 10 to 1. Okay. It happens the same thing whether it's a 12 color printer or a 8 color printer. But here's the catch. A Pro-1000, you cannot really do that because you would have to be able to reset all of the cartridges to full. Okay. That's the beauty of the Pro-100 and the Pro-10. You can manually reset those chips to full. Okay. So one goes low. I don't care if the other chips are at different levels. I'm not losing anything. I'm just going to top off those other partially filled cartridges to full and reset them to full. I'm not losing ink. I'm not wasting ink. I'll be wasting ink if I choose to only exchange one at a time. That's it. Because of that stupid domino effect that takes place after a couple of cycles of printing. In other words, exchanging cartridges. It gets to the point where none of them are ever you'll have one almost dead, almost empty, and one still full. Yeah, that'll happen. And so that's what happens. You'll constantly be changing cartridges and constantly be producing purge cycles which waste ink, not just from that one cartridge, but the rest of them. That's why. And, that took a while to figure out, and I came up with this plan. And this is what I preach, and I hope everyone does this. If you choose to buy a Pro-100 or Pro-10, which are great printers for refillers because you can reset all the chips at once. Yeah. Anything else, you have to wait for the chip to go empty and then either reset it using auto reset type technology, or you have to replace the chip or whatever. But you cannot just do all of them because you'll be wasting whatever levels were left on those chips. You see what I mean? Like the Pro-1000 cannot be reset. So why waste ink levels on a chip? Let it go empty. It's going to be one at a time. Here's the thing. Those printers do not have purge cycles. They have stationary cartridges. They sit there. They do not react like these do. These ride on the print head. They produce purge cycles. Okay? Those are the ones. The Pro-100, the Pro-10, the P400 from EPSON, the R3000 or the P600. No, stationary cartridges, no purge cycles. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. Only with the Pro-10 and the Pro-100. Those are the only two printers from Canon that are easily refillable. Those are the ones that you want to make sure that you don't get into this domino effect situation. That would not be good. And the more you do that, the more ink you're dumping into the internal pads, which have to be replaced by the service center. You can't do it yourself, okay? And it will cost you pretty much as a new printer anyway. So why would you want to reduce the lifespan of those internal pads? But in case you're worried, my Pro-100 is going to be going on 7 years this August. Okay, and still doing okay. All right. I've been refilling from the beginning. I think I printed a few OEM pictures and I removed those cartridges and immediately began to use refillable modified cartridges for refilling. Will says, yeah, a lot of times the rubber roller just won't grab the thicker paper. It will spin and try to grab. Yeah, once it starts to spin, that means the rubber surface is deteriorating. It's becoming slick. Okay, it's becoming possibly hardened. Okay, and it needs to be soft and sticky to put it into terms that, you would have to have in order to be able to grab paper, especially something that's thick. Okay, because if it's thick, the rubber has to basically give and grab that paper. And once it grabs it, so why not feed from the back? You would not have to worry about those feed rollers, okay? You wouldn't have to. Try that. Give that a try. Okay, Cal Johnson, the plastic seal over rubber gasket was punctured into the well enough to appear like a leak risk. Can it be removed it altogether? Wait, what? 220 ml L-shaped carts for 38. Oh my goodness, you lost me. Are you using those big old, they look like a giant, we call them gun tanks? Is that what you're talking about? Also, do you think I can fit a piggyback chip onto a refillable? No, you can't. T58 cartridge to my L-shaped 3880. They look like the same. You could try it and see if it works, but I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. I'm getting what you're asking. Just like this. So here's a piggyback chip. By that I mean that underneath you have to have an original chip for this particular color, whatever this color is. The label is gone, so I don't even know. This is just a prop. So yeah, you have your original chip underneath and then your piggyback chip on top. The piggyback chip is the controller chip. It reads the color code for the original chip, not the level. The level could be, 15% only. It reads the color ID and then it uses this to produce an ink level, a working ink level. But I don't know about those L-shaped cartridges. If the chips are the same size and same, design and configuration, then sure, you can probably get away with that. Okay. Well, folks, I think we're going to end this fiasco before it gets worse. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. Again, hopefully next week it won't be like this. It'll go smooth as it normally does. Again, I appreciate you guys coming on board tonight and all the wonderful questions you asked. And I hope I was able to help everyone out, at least most of you. And again, like I said, really do appreciate you guys supporting this channel in what I am doing. So thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and try to end this with a little bit of music. If I can find my, oh my gosh, that's gone too. That's okay. We'll find our music and we will go ahead and continue doing what we do. I mean, this is what we do for fun. All right, here we go. Let me see. Wait a minute. Dan Carter says, I have a new inbox IP 8720. Okay, here. I want to use compatible carts. Do I really need to first install those setup Canon cartridges? Well, do you really want to know what your 8720 can do? Because compatible cartridges are inferior as far as ink goes. I mean, this is as honest as I can be, okay? You will never see what your printer can do unless you install original. What are you worried about? You want to sell them or something? If that's the case, then fine. But again, often than not, there is some coding that needs to be installed in the printer from those setup cartridges. That's why they call them setup cartridges. It's not because they have less ink or anything like that. It's just because they have to be identified. The printer has to record that it was initiated with OEM cartridges. Okay, it has to, because I don't know what it affects down the road or downstream, but okay, just take that with a grain of salt. Can you initiate them with non-genuine inks? Probably. But again, like I said, if it has nothing to do with the chips, it has a lot to do with the inks. Because unless those compatible cartridges have ink as good as Canon's? You will never know. Are we talking about a Canon printer? I think it is. Right? Is that a Canon printer? IP8720? Yeah. You'll never know what the printer can produce. And you will be getting possibly mediocre results until you go back and switch to OEM and you go, oh my God. So this is what it really can do. You see, why would you want to do that? Again, unless you want to sell those cartridges, maybe that's what you want to do. Who knows? But again, I would just go ahead and install them and then switch over, and then you will see the difference. But again, if you're thinking about using compatible cartridges on Canon printers, I would recommend you did not. And I don't know whether the 8720 can have its cartridges modified or not. I really am not familiar with that model, so I cannot tell you whether you should just, install those cartridges, then modify them, then refill them with good inks instead of the junk that they fill compatible cartridges with. Yes. And to top it off, you often don't get the volume that you think you're getting either. Okay. They will be underfilled. A lot of people have problems like that where the chip shows that they have ink, but the cartridge is dry. And what happens to a Canon printhead when the cartridge is dry? That channel will overheat. It's not going to immediately go bad, but it will overheat. And if you continue the abuse, it will cause damage to that particular channel. I have an Epson 810 Artisan, and it sometimes prints black shaded out on my printouts. What do I need to do? You mean your blacks are not black? Run a nozzle check. Make sure your black is actually flowing. Yeah. When you see a sudden change or any change from what used to be okay and now it is not, don't continue printing and try to, hope printing will solve the problem. No, run a nozzle check. The nozzle check is your diagnostic tool for ink flow and for the health of your printhead. Okay. If you have 10,000 little microscopic nozzles, all 10,000 have to be firing. Okay. And that will tell you what is not firing. So if you have a deficit of black, then your blacks, of course, are not going to be as dark. So check your nozzle check and look at the black channel. Dan Carter says, yes, it is. So it can be refillable. It can be refilled. Inks from PC. Yeah, that'll be good. Precisioncolors has inks to be used with carts they provide. Okay. If they vouch by that, then fine. Go for it. It just depends on the design of the cartridge. If it's a sponge cartridge like this, every single third-party sponged Canon cartridge is inferior to the originals. Okay, the sponges are a lot more sophisticated than we give them credit. Okay. Vivian Garcia says, wow, that is a famous name, isn't it? Are you sure you're not the Vivian Garcia from DC Channel 4 News? Wow. No black appears on the page like blocked out. Yeah, you have nozzle check shows no black. Run a cleaning cycle. Okay? Run a cleaning cycle. Are you refilling or are you using original cartridges? If you are, then maybe that's the problem. And so continue doing your nozzle checks, cleaning cycles until you get your black online again. Otherwise, there's nothing else really you can do except cleaning cycles and nozzle checks. Printing is not going to really do anything. Have you been printing regularly on that printer? I have one of those as well. I used to have one of those. And so again, I was using refillable cartridges, and often I would have channels that were not firing correctly due to the cartridges. Cal Johnson just dropped a super chat. Thank you, Cal. Appreciate that, my friend. So let's see. We're getting close to that 3 hour, minus the fiascos in between these live streams. Vivian says, sometimes I wait until the next day to try to reprint and it works. No original cartridges. Yeah, that's the reason. That's your reason right there. Cartridges, let me give you something before I go off the air. Do I even have an example here? Let me see. Okay, I have this is not the type of cartridge you have, but it'll give you the same idea. It'll help you figure out the same idea. Do you see this kind of semicircular area right here? It's right here. Take a look at that. Let me see if I can orient it. You might be able to see it. Okay, so this is a refillable cartridge for EPSON R3000. If that's called a priming chamber, okay? If that priming chamber, and this has to be filled by vacuum to be able to get ink to flow upwards into that priming chamber. And that creates a siphon effect. Like when you're siphoning gas out of your car tank to put in your lawnmower, you need to establish a siphon. That's what's happening in your printer cartridges that are refillable. When you lose that because you may have let it go too low and ink was drawn out until the point where there was no more ink in the cartridge, but you then utilize whatever ink was left in the priming chamber, that's it. It's airlocked. It's not going to allow, whether you refill it or not, it's not going to allow ink to flow upward. It cannot defy the law of gravity. You need to reestablish the prime. And the prime is what will reestablish that siphon effect, which will allow ink to go from the bottom of the cartridge up into that priming chamber and across and out that port. That's how it works. If that pathway is severed, broken in any way, you will not be able to flow ink into that particular channel. So check that black cartridge and reprime it. How do you reprime it? You take a syringe just like this, you stick it into that port, and you pull back. Forcibly, like this. You pull back. And that will force ink to go up and into that chamber. And then go ahead and top it back up to full. Make sure you reset it, if it's a resettable cartridge, and reinstall it. And then run a couple of cleaning cycles again. And you should be able to have, if it's not a head clog, okay, if it's a head clog, but you told me you were on non-original cartridges, so I suspect that's the problem. But if it's a head clog, that's another different subject, okay? And again, it could be something permanent, or it could be something that can be solved by cleaning cycles. Cleaning cycles are so wasteful, though. They use ink to clean instead of some other cheap solvent. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Okay. Oh, you use original cartridges. Oh, I thought you said no original cartridges, meaning. All right, so you're using original cartridges? Then, oh, my goodness. Then I don't know what's going on then. Because original cartridges do work perfectly well. Okay. That may mean that, you have a problem with your channel, your black channel. Hey. That's another ball game right there. So you got to make sure that you have on an EPSON, it's okay to print. If you have access to Photoshop or any kind of editing program, just create a black document and send it on plain paper and see what happens. Send it and set the driver to think as photo paper and the highest quality, and just let it print slowly. It's not going to burn out the printhead. EPSON printheads don't burn out like Canon printheads do. Okay, so just do that and see if you can force that out. If not, gosh, the only other way would be to buy a set of refillable cartridges and just fill like the black cartridge, okay, with Windex from the store, window cleaner, Windex with ammonia. Fill that cartridge, prime it, put it in there, and run cleaning cycles and see if that will clear it out. I have no other way to solve that other than that. I mean, you're wasting a lot of ink if you're using OEM inks, trying to keep that or get that, you know. And remember that, you got to remember this as well. The Artisan, what was it? 810. Is that a stationary cartridge printer? Meaning, do the cartridges write on the printhead and do this, or do they sit in one position? And there are ink lines. There's a belt of little ink lines, sort of a flat belt that attached to the printhead. Tell me if that's the case with that model, because the 720 that I had, and I also had an 835 Artisan, was stationary cartridges. So what I want you to do, if it is stationary cartridges, locate that black ink line, open up the lid, locate that black ink line, and see if it's got ink in it. Okay? That's the only thing. Levite Apparel is here. Wow, you came in at the last 10 minutes of the stream. The streams, because this is going to be, I think it's going to end up being 3 parts. I'm not sure. We'll check that later as the system finishes doing their processing of this fiasco. Yeah, so it's stationary. So open up your printer top, in other words, like that, and look inside. You should be able to see where the cartridges sit. You should be able to see a belt of little tubes that lead to the printhead that moves back and forth with the printhead. Locate the black tube and see if it's solid black. Okay? If you have air in there, then that could be the problem. Okay? And that's basically about all I can tell you to do. Again, it could be serious. It could be like the channel is completely blocked and it just intermittently allows ink to go through. It could be you're not refilling, so it's not that. Really not much else other than air in the ink line. I think we're going to call it a night. Okay? I hear noises upstairs. And so I'm going to go up and grab a little din-din and have some fun with my grandson. All right, guys. So, again, I apologize for all the fiascos, all the problems and mishaps and all of that. That happens. It happens. You know how they say, you know what happens, right? And so, hopefully, next week it'll be a lot more smooth and no problems. I'm going to go ahead and turn on some music here. The same thing that I had at the beginning. Or maybe something else like this. Let me see what we have here. Yeah, I like this one. I like this one. So, again, happy printing, everybody. We'll see you next week. Keep subscribing, sharing, and liking. Join the Facebook group so that you can take part on over almost 3,700 members right now. So, and guess what? They all think alike. So thank you so much. We'll see you the next week. Bye-bye.